The message arrived on an ordinary afternoon, at the most unexpected moment. I was not doing anything dramatic, just sitting on the edge of my bed, scrolling through my phone, trying to distract myself from the exhaustion of the whole week. Life had been heavy lately, but nothing prepared me for what I was about to read. My phone buzzed. I glanced at the notification and saw my mother's name. For a second, I felt a spark of hope. Maybe she wanted to talk. Maybe she finally wanted to straighten things out after months of tension and silence. But when I tapped to open the message, everything inside me went cold. "We've agreed you're no longer part of the family. Don't expect an invitation again." I didn't understand at first. My mind refused to process the words, like they were written in another language. I read them again, slower this time. Then again. The sentence felt like a blade, sharp, final, deliberate. My family had made decisions behind my back before, but this was a declaration, a closure of a door I had spent my entire life trying to keep open. And it was delivered through a message from the woman who gave me life. My hands started shaking. I didn't know if I wanted to cry, scream, or laugh at the absurd cruelty of it. No explanation, no conversation, no chance to defend myself. Just a cold announcement that I had been cut off like a loose thread they no longer needed. My mind raced to every argument we had ever had. Every moment they said I was too different, too stubborn, too opinionated. Every time I didn't fit their mold. Maybe this was inevitable. Maybe they had been working their way to this moment for years. But knowing that didn't make it hurt less. I sat there staring at the screen until the letters blurred. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in like everything familiar was suddenly foreign. The silence in the house became deafening, as if the world paused just to let the pain echo louder. I kept waiting for another message. Something softer, something to show it was a misunderstanding. But nothing came, just that one sentence, cold and final. Memories began replaying, not the bad ones but the bittersweet ones. Family dinners where I tried to fit in. Birthdays I thought were filled with genuine warmth. Holidays where I convinced myself their silence toward me wasn't intentional. I wondered how many of those moments were real and how many were me desperately convincing myself I belonged. I didn't realize it then, but those memories began to feel like someone else's life, as if the version of me in them no longer existed. I tried calling my mother, but the call didn't go through. Not once, not twice. Then I noticed the small detail that hit even harder than the message itself. I had been blocked. Blocked by my own family. The finality of it was suffocating. It felt like a funeral, only I was alive and forced to watch them bury the relationship I fought so hard to maintain. The worst part was imagining the conversation they must have had, the quiet agreement to cut me off as if I were the problem they were relieved to be rid of. Hours passed but time felt frozen. I kept replaying the message in my mind, every word stabbing deeper. I wondered how they could make such a decision without speaking to me. Without asking how I was coping, what I was going through, or why I had become distant. They never asked why I avoided family gatherings. They never noticed the emotional exhaustion they caused. And now, they had made it official, I was no longer part of them. I lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to breathe. Losing your family is not like losing a friend or a job. It shakes your identity. It makes you question your worth. It forces you to confront the possibility that everything you believed about love and loyalty might have been a lie. I tried to remember the last moment I felt safe with them, but the more I searched, the clearer it became, I never truly did. Night fell before I even realized I hadn't moved for hours. I eventually got up, walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and sat in the dim light. The quiet felt heavier than before. But it was in that quiet that something shifted. Pain doesn't disappear quickly, and the wound they left would take a long time to heal. But in that moment, I realized something important. I had survived worse storms. I had been pushed aside, judged, misunderstood, and blamed countless times, yet I was still standing. Maybe this message, cruel as it was also a kind of freedom. A painful freedom, yes, but a freedom from expectations I could never meet. A freedom from the pressure to please people who never tried to understand me. A freedom from the cycle of disappointment. For the first time, I allowed myself to consider that losing them might not mean losing myself. The tears finally came, not from weakness, but from release. I wiped them away, sat up straighter, and looked at the message one last time. Not with pain, but with a strange, quiet resolve. If they had chosen to let me go, then I would choose to rise. I would rebuild my life. not because they pushed me out, but because I deserved peace, love, and a family that didn't threaten to erase me. I closed my phone, took a deep breath, and whispered into the empty room, I still belong somewhere. And for the first time in a long while, I believed it. When my family erased me, I thought that was the end of everything. The message they sent, the silence that followed, and the sudden disappearance of every connection I once relied on created a strange emptiness around me. But what I did not expect was how quickly that emptiness would start filling with questions. Not questions about myself, but questions about them, about what truly happened behind closed doors, about what pushed them to such a final decision, and about what they were hiding while pretending to cut me off for peace. I tried to move on, but curiosity has a way of sinking its claws in when you least expect it. The first clue came a week later when my cousin reached out. She wasn't someone I spoke to often, but her voice over the phone sounded nervous, almost frightened. She didn't call to offer comfort or support. She called to warn me. Whatever they told you, she whispered as if afraid someone could hear her, it's not the full story. Be careful. Then she hung up. No explanation, no details, just a warning that left me with more confusion than before. Why would my family need to warn anyone about me? Why would she reach out at all if the family had supposedly agreed to cut me off completely? I tried to shake it off, but her words lingered. The next sign came unexpectedly through social media. I noticed that my sister, who proudly used to post every detail of her perfect life, suddenly went quiet. No pictures, no updates, no celebrations. My mother's account, usually active and full of passive-aggressive quotes about loyalty and family, also went silent. It was strange, too strange. It didn't feel like normal silence. It felt like the kind people create when they're hiding something. One evening, while scrolling through old messages, I noticed that my mother's final text had a tone that wasn't just cruel, it was panicked. As if cutting me off wasn't about me at all, but about covering something up. The idea seemed absurd, but it wouldn't leave my mind. My family isn't the type to unite or agree on anything unless they are threatened. For them to unanimously agree on removing me, something bigger had to be happening. A few days later, the truth began unraveling when an envelope appeared in my mailbox. It came with no return address, but the handwriting was familiar, my father's. Inside was a single piece of paper. No apology, no explanation, just a name and an address. At the bottom he had written, "You deserve to know." That was it. My heart raced as I held the paper. My father was the quiet one, the one who rarely interfered in the drama. For him to send this secretly meant the situation was far more complicated than I imagined. I stared at the address for hours, wondering if I should go, wondering if I even wanted more pain. But curiosity, frustration, and a strange need for closure pushed me forward. The address led to a small, unfamiliar office building on the other side of town. It didn't look like anything important, just a quiet place with frosted windows and a sign that revealed nothing. Inside, a receptionist looked up at me with recognition the moment I said my father's name. That was my second shock of the day. She told me to wait. Minutes felt like hours before a man in his late 50s walked out, holding a folder. He asked my name, then nodded slowly, as if confirming something he already suspected. When he opened the folder, I felt my stomach drop. It wasn't about me. It was about them. Legal papers, debt records, property issues, and a failed scheme they had tried to hide from everyone, including me. The man explained, carefully and with more sympathy than my own family had ever offered, that my parents, together with 2 other relatives, had been involved in a financial mess. They were afraid of it being exposed, afraid of backlash, afraid that someone in the family, someone like me, who always questioned things, would ask the wrong questions or uncover what they'd done. Cutting me off wasn't punishment. It was strategy. They erased me to protect themselves. They didn't want me close because they feared I would discover the truth. And instead of trusting me, instead of asking for help or honesty, they made up their minds to push me out completely so that if everything collapsed, I wouldn't be a witness. They were protecting their secret, not their family. I walked out of that building with a storm inside me. The betrayal felt deeper now, not because they cut me off, but because they used me as a shield. They sacrificed me to protect their lies. I wanted to scream, to confront them, to demand answers, but something inside me stopped. For the first time in my life, I saw them clearly, not as the people I hoped they were, but as the people they chose to be. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, the folder open on my table, and realized that everything made sense. The sudden decision, the panicked message, the silence online, the secret meetings they probably thought I wouldn't notice. They didn't remove me from the family because I was a problem. They removed me because I wasn't easy to manipulate. Because I asked questions. Because I saw through their masks. The pain was still there, sharp and heavy. But something else began to grow alongside it, strength. Real, undeniable strength. They cut me off to protect themselves, but in doing so, they freed me from a toxic cycle I never realized I was trapped in. I wasn't the outsider. I was the one who refused to become like them. And now that I knew the truth, one thing became certain: losing them wasn't the tragedy. Staying with them would have been.